So to get this bolt in through the side, you're going to want to trap this nut against the inside of here. You thread it through there like they were showing you. So it has the bolt that's going through the side, like the side holder, and then the motor itself. And then you're going to keep pressing that bolt against that side. So then you come to it through the side and you have something to press against. Now you can find the nut through there. And I missed it, so I'm just going to back out and start again. So you want to line that bolt up with this hole. And you're taking this, finding the hole with this, squeeze, and once it catches, you're golden. Then you're just tightening it down against this. Easy. There you go. Go. Okay. So once again, you need to take this little bolt and nut and put it through this motor. So once again, I'm going to take my nut, put it on my finger, trap it against the side, and then find it by going through with, so I'm going to line it up, go through. Unfortunately, the screw holes don't quite line up, so it was beginning to be a real pain in the butt to do it. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to widen the hole a little bit to be able to get this screw through. I apologize to people outside of the US. What I have is a 7/64 bit. This is a 7/64 bit, or for those of you with a sensible system of measurement, it's a 2.7 millimeter drill bit. So basically I'm just going through, just widening that hole just the tiniest bit to be able to put this through. And now that goes through nicely. So I'm almost through. So as I go through, gonna come up just on this side so that I'm almost through there. And then I'm going to find it with my nut. Pinch it. Okay, I've got it. Okay, now it's spinning. So now you can just grab it with whatever, and there you go. So these are M2.5 holes, and I have 3s. So I'm actually just going to use a drill to drill through the board. Which is totally safe. It's totally safe to do. It's just fiberglass. There's no electronics to go through. Okay, and now these standoffs will work perfectly. So what we're going to do now is we're going to modify the motor power wires to more easily go through the chassis and also to attach to the DC motor hat. What I'm going to use is some wire cutters, this tiny little screwdriver, and some heat shrink tubing, which is 1/8, or for those of you with a sensible measurement system, it's a 4 or a 3. Yeah, so like a, there we go. It's a 3 millimeter. It's a 3 millimeter heat shrink tubing. Okay, so you'll notice there's this little pin here, and that's actually what holds on this plastic sleeve. So I'm just gonna pry that off. You pry this up with the little screwdriver, and then it slides off. The plastic tip just slides off. Now that long piece there, we don't need all this. What we want is to insert this into the space on the DC motor hat. So I'm just going to chop that off like so. So now we have this cool little nub that's pre-made for us. And then I'm going to do that on the second one, just to show you again. So pry that up. Okay, plastic slides off, and we cut it here. Now we got some heat shrink tubing that we need to use. So I'm going to use this, use a piece of heat shrink tubing, 1/8, or like I said, it's a 3 millimeter. So you'll only be able to put one of these through at a time, but you want to put it on both. So one goes over like that, and then you need to get to like just the wire space. You need to get beyond the head, and then you can fit this one through. So just push that through. Okay, so now they're together. So we're just trying to group these into individual motors, and then we're just gonna heat shrink that right there. So these are the spacers for the, this is the spacers for the battery stand, right? So it's on that slant, this slant, these two slants, right? So you want to position them somewhere in here. I just used these, they're 8s. Sorry, they're 8s. So they're 8 millimeter posts that I put into here. So I put those on just using the little plastic bolts, the plastic nuts work. This bolts through here, right? You put these posts on with those. That comes with the kit, and then the screw goes on there to the universal wheel. I might upgrade that later. Anyway, and I put additional spacers on here. So that's 6. Looks like it looks like a 6. That are these spacers at the top to give it a little bit of additional height, because this was high enough where the battery was rocking, and I put it on there. And then you just, putting on the wheels is as simple as there's that kind of oblong, and then so are these. So you just fit them on and smash them on. Okay, so this is kind of the soldering piece. So I'm not actually going to be soldering during this video. Maybe I'll do it at another time. But basically you push those up through, like it sits on top of this. This black body here comes through. the header comes through, and then you solder along the top. But I'm just going to show you kind of what I did. I'm not going to actually show you soldering because it's already soldered, but basically I taped it down onto the table so that it wouldn't move around. And then I approach it on one side with this, and I sort of touched both with a hot soldering iron, and then I dabbed at it with this. Like I dabbed at it from the other side with the solder, and then the next one, dabbed at it with solder, dabbed at it with solder, like that, on down the line. So that's kind of my process. Maybe at another time I'll make a video about soldering, but this is not it. I highly recommend at this point, before you start mounting your Raspberry Pi, I highly recommend putting in your compact flash card into your Raspberry Pi now before you do the other steps. So part of the process is you flash it with like an essential thing, and then you get updates later, but there's an essential loading step that you do from your computer into your compact flash card. This is a USB thing that I used. So you want to take out the drive. It's just a real pain to get to once it's mounted. So you got this. So you want to have your brand facing up, or your brand facing down to the bottom of the Pi, and just slide it in like that. Okay, if you forgot to put in your compact flash drive before, or if you put it in and you discover that you need to take it out for some reason, this is the way I would do it. I actually just use tweezers. These are ceramic tweezers, they're pretty gentle. So you take your flash drive out like that, and if you need to put it back in, you go up underneath it, feel underneath it for like a little, it's like a little channel that it goes into. Sort of rock it back and forth until you find it. You don't want to force this. I have broken these. So then you just insert it and just gently make sure it's all the way in there. There you go. Okay, so I punched out a couple of places here on the Magician chassis, and I'm going to place this on top of it. It's in a slightly different place than they do on the Duckietown site. The spacers that I'm using a 12 and a 6, 12 millimeter and a 6 millimeter as a spacer. Of course I reamed out these with a slightly larger drill bit so that I could put this through, so I could use this particular size. And then, so yeah, it sort of lines up like this. Okay, so yeah, so it's lined up right behind these holes. Just a little trick, if you need to find black things that are against another background, just hit them with a little bit of silver Sharpie, and you can keep track of where they are more easily. Like so. There you go. So now you can always see those little dots. And you just put these little nuts on. And it looks like a 7/32 bit. Actually do it. Actually tighten them down. these little plastic things, this is actually, the camera's actually backwards in this mount. But you want the plastic, those little plastic pins to come through these 4 holes. So that it lines up at the correct, so it lines up at the correct angle. And I'm just going to use a hot glue gun and just put a little dab on each one. Just to hold it on there. There you go. I've got this camera here. So I did the gluing, and I have the long version of it on here. So this needs to go underneath the Raspberry Pi. So I'm just going to snake it through. If it gets caught, just wiggle it. Okay. It goes up here. Now, all right, so what I want to do is I want to take some of this slack and have it hide behind the camera like so. I'm just doing kind of pulling it up there. If I can get my power cable to not interfere with it, that would be nice. But yeah, I think that looks better. I have this hard drive magnet that I keep these things on. So it goes along these third ones here, goes along that third stripe. You just want to turn it with your hands, or if that's too hard, you hold it down to it and turn it from the top. Okay, not too tight, doesn't really need to bear any weight, so then our next one, in fact, you want to leave it a little bit loose to give yourself some wiggle room on the other side. So like where I tightened it down, you can see it doesn't quite line up. So I'm just going to loosen this just a tad to give myself some wiggle room. And now the holes line up. Pinch them together, come to the top. Oh, I missed. If you miss, do it again. Couple turns should do it. And I want to pull that all the way to the front before I tighten it. Just hold your finger on the nut. It should be enough friction to keep it closed. There you go. So now your camera's on there. The camera cable, you want to bring it back through like this. And the easiest way, so you're looking at the bottom, and you see that L that it makes. So you look for the big L, and then you want to come through like this, through there, right? And then you want to go sort of turn it. And then you want the blue side to face the USB. The blue side faces the USBs. And then this thing, so this is a lock, right? So I pull up on it, I can close it, pull up on it. So now it's open. And you want to slide this down in there while the lock is up. And you'll see that the ribbon goes inside and almost completely hides the silver. right? Like that. So it's all, like the silver has gone down all the way inside. Then you want to press down on these sides, and that locks it into place. Oh, I missed it a little bit. It's better to do this now. Make sure camera cable lines up. Make sure it's fully unlocked. Blue towards the USB. Fully down. And clipped into place. Might take you a couple tries, don't worry about it. All right, so now this slides down and plugs onto the header. So then the header is here. You want to make sure that it goes straight down onto it so that those pins and the top pins are the same, and then just press down until it goes into place. It's a little high. You can see there's a little bit of space underneath it. But that's fine, and I did that because I wanted it to be uniform across the top. So it's a standard height, it's good, looks straight across. So there you go. Quick correction if I did it wrong before. The charging port should be in front on your battery for the Duckiebot. So the charging port should sit above this, and these USB cables should be in the front of your car. Okay. Just in case you did it wrong, like I just did. All right, so now we're gonna put these two parts in. So you have the top, which has your Raspberry Pi. Hopefully you put in that card by now. You've got your DC stepper motor hat with your cool soldered on connections. You've got your camera, and its cable is coming through, and make sure you see the printing on this side. Yeah, so now we're going to put this top on. So what I do is I put the screw on like that, and then I find the hole with the screw. And we're looking for this back guy right here, right? The little lone things there. This one in kind of loosely, because it'd be nice if it moved a little bit at this point. And let's see. So this hole right here. We can find this thing, and if I need to move it a little bit, I can. And find it. There we go. Just help it along underneath by grabbing onto the spacer, which is hexagonal, so it allows me to grab it a little bit. Okay. And sorry if you hear the TV too much. People are upstairs watching a movie. All right, so then this guy in front here. Just make sure that hole lines up. There we go. And then this last guy. About that off camera a little bit. Okay, so now we just need to wire up the power and the electrical. Already did this part before, but basically I'm going to show you kind of how I measured it. So when you're putting in your USB power, right, you don't want it to be super long. So you plug it, actually go up through the side, and remember those things we busted out? You actually can go up underneath and through the deck. And then I just actually made this exactly the length that I needed it to be. So this can go to my stepper motor hat. It's just enough cord. It's just enough cable to go up to the stepper motor hat from here. And the way that I did that was, I'm going to make sure these are apart. Don't try this at home. See, I'm grabbing onto one of it because if they touch right now, I'll spark. So I actually plug it in to the USB and I pull it up, and then I basically put it over here and cut it. So at this point, you know how long you want your USB cable to be because you marked it. Hopefully you cut it there or you held onto it while you pulled it out. So we're just gonna make these ends a little bit better. So I'm just gonna use my wire strippers to cut back on this insulation a little bit. All right, so you can see I'm removing the outside. There's a bunch of gunk there. Now, on certain cables, you're gonna have these twine. The twine is just to give it some structural stability. Actually, some of the nicer cables have it. And the only ones that you need are the red and the black wires. So all this stuff out here, all the rest of this stuff you're not gonna need. So you do not need the white wire or the green wire, or if there's twine inside, you don't need that. And I twist that together just so that I can get an even cut on those. And I'm gonna use scissors because on the twine, you really do want scissors. So I'm just gonna snip that off. Okay, so I believe we're using a 1/4 now, which is like it's like a 4. Okay, so yeah, so we're using a 4-inch heat shrink tube, and we're gonna be cutting off just a tiny section. It's not gonna be long, and then that's going to be put on before we do anything else. I'll just slide it over the top, kind of wiggle it around. And you don't need it up close yet, but you want it on there before you start doing anything else, just to make sure that you have it. And I'm just gonna trim just a little bit. Okay, so now we're gonna do these guys. Hopefully this one goes smoother. Okay. Now it's hard to hold everything at once, so I actually use a coffee cup or something and tape it onto there so that it sort of holds your work. And make sure everything is out of the way of your torch if you're using a torch like I am. You can also use a soldering iron if that's more comfortable for you. And then I'm just gonna give it just a touch of solder. And I sort of hit it so that it doesn't keep that lump on there. I don't like the lumps. Okay, there you go. So those are tinned. And then you see that piece fell off. That's fine. We could actually add that again now. Okay, just give it a little bit more stability. And now that piece that we had down here, we're going to slide that up and cover this part right here. Just makes it look nicer and it's a little bit safer. And then just shrink it on like that. So now we have a nice little end piece there. And I did my shrink wrapping on here. I tinned these. And then, yeah, so I'm gonna unplug it from power just for safety. And we're gonna put the red on the plus side and the black on the negative side. Make sure they go in there real nice underneath the, like inside of the little channels. There's little channels inside. There we go. And then push them in till they should seat in there really nicely. The power cables here should seat in there really nicely. You don't want them to stick out too far. And then you just tighten those down. Good. So now we have power to the DC motor hat. Okay. Basically, you want to wiggle this. You want to figure out which one it is. Okay, so this is my left, right? Feed it up through this guy here. Tweezers are our friend. All right, so I fed this one up. This is my left. And then just make sure it says M1 ground M2, right? So you want to put the black ones to the inside. Okay, push them inside. There you go. Now the next one obviously is the right. Okay. Once again, ground is on the inside. So these plug into these. They should fit all the way inside so that the metal is clamping down on the metal. There we go. We'll do them one at a time. All right, that one's clamped down. There we go. Okay, now, so this is sort of a long cable, but I like this cable because it has a very short cord protector here, which we like. So basically, I'm gonna feed this through here. And this is gonna be my power. Plugs right into that space right here. Pull out a little slack like that. And then I'm gonna wrap it through this little post between the battery and the post. Pull it through. Feed it through nicely, you don't want to pull anything. Okay. And then I'm going to feed this through here, up to the front. So between these posts and here, so you see I've come out like between them like that. And this feeds up here so that I can plug it in here, right? And now I'm going to plug everything in because I need to know how long to make this cable. Okay. And now with this back here, I'm going to grab this and basically fold this and I think I'll just use a twisty tie for now, because why not? If you want to get really clever, oh, sorry. So I sort of just bunched it into there. I'm going to use these little screws to hold on the top here, just to button it up nicely. Oh, of course I lose one inside. So. So hold it on there like that. Okay, now you've got a finished Duckiebot. This time I'll go from the inside through. To here. And then from here underneath and that definitely works. So you can see kind of what I've done here. I've sort of twisted them around each other so that this is the one from the pie, that's the long one. This is the short one. So I've sort of twisted around so that they can get there and not contact the wheel. And that's the finishing touch.